Welcome back to the YouTube podcast. I'm here with my partner in crime, Trish Stock. We're not without controversy here. We love to talk about things that maybe you don't hear at other places and kind of take hot takes on things. What we're going to talk about today, Trish, is the nomination numbers game, as I'll call it, and has it become irrelevant? What do you think? Does that sound intriguing to you?
It does. And this is the process that people don't understand, or they get the nomination, they're excited. I got my appointment. So it's different, and it's a very important component of your application. So really excited to break down today what that means.
Let's go ahead and kind of talk about the way it used to be. So before last application cycle, which was 2024, 2025. So before then, don't know how many years it went back before then, but each member of Congress had 10 nominations that they could nominate someone to a particular academy. A nomination is permission, or it gives you a ticket to compete for an appointment to a service academy. So a member of Congress can nominate up to 10 people. For the most part, one was guaranteed to get in to the academy. The other 9 could possibly be appointed by other processes, but the member of Congress was limited to 10 to compete for an appointment to a service academy. And so last year, the nominations went from 10 to 15. So they added 5 more slots, meaning that there was a 50% increase in the number of nominations that each member of Congress could nominate to an academy. So what does this mean? I mean, for candidates, member of Congress, and the process as a whole, I mean, you look at it on paper and it really sounds like a win, right? More nominations means more opportunities for students. It means that they could possibly be nominated to multiple academies. The question is how competitive is this process, and how many members of Congress are actually nominating 15 people to a service academy? Let's just start with some raw facts here. Out of all congressional districts in the House, meaning 435 districts, only 38 actually filled all 15 nomination slots to West Point. And that's the data that we have. That's 9% of the total number of members of the House. And remember, that's only for West Point. Many applicants were nominated to multiple academies, meaning that the overlap is significant. The majority of districts didn't even come close to hitting 15. So Trish, I mean, given that, what does that tell us, you think?
Well, I mean, if you want more than one nomination, your chances of applying to multiple academies and getting the nomination are higher than ever, which is a great thing. And if you're in a district that didn't max out at 15 nominations, your chances are close to 99%. Even in competitive districts, we're talking about a 95% slot at getting a nomination somewhere, at least one nomination. And the odds are really heavily in your favor. And I think it's really important to point out that a lot of people assume that members of Congress decide if someone's qualified or not. That's not really their role. They look at candidates, and if they have a slot, they want to fill that slot. So if you see a district with only 10 out of 15 nominees, that means that there were likely only 10 nominees or 10 people who applied for that slot. Not that a congressman or congresswoman is saying, this person's not qualified. It's very rare that that will happen. So if they have a vacancy, they will try and fill it if they can.
Right. I mean, so you're talking about for low competition districts that don't max out. I mean, your chances of getting a nomination or multiple nominations, as you mentioned, are very, very high. So this has changed. I mean, we're probably looking at about double that, or rather double the amount of congressional districts before the 2024, 2025 applications actually maxed out their 10, right? So instead of 9%, it was probably close to a quarter, right? So now because of the 50% increase, we're looking at only 9%, right? And so the question that came up into my mind is, okay, you got these odds right here, and the candidates are being told to fill out applications to every nomination source available, both of your senators, your member of the House, even the vice president of the United States. And it's become a common rite of passage to spend hours, if not weeks, crafting essays, collecting letters of recommendation, prepping for interviews, chasing deadlines. I can tell you some senators makes you do 8 essays, some crazy high number like that. And imagine the number of hours that these candidates are going through getting all of this stuff together. But most candidates are landing the nomination anyway with their member of the House and oftentimes to multiple academies. How much of this effort do you think, Trish, is truly, really necessary?
I mean, this is a great conversation because it's not a waste of time for candidates to do this. There's just such a disconnect. And there's better places that candidates could be spending their time versus writing 8 essays if they're a very strong candidate in their congressional district, especially if they're in a district where it's kind of a given that they're going to be given a nomination from their local member of Congress. And I would rather see that student, instead of obsessing over their essays and spending hours and hours on those essays for the senator, I would rather see them go back and improve their SAT, ACT math score, go retake the CFA, like improve different aspects of their applications that perhaps hold more weight as to whether or not they get in. If, and there's a big if here, they are in a district where they are likely to get the nomination from their local representative. What do you think,
Right.
sir?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, so the question that a lot of people in this podcast are going to be asking is, well, what are those 9%? And as kind of a snapshot or a kind of sneak peek of a future episode, we're going to do a deep dive on those 9 or 10% of those 435. And we're going to do a deep dive into those congressional districts and look at where those congressional districts are, what their socioeconomic characteristics are, what the propensity of that district are of people to serve, and to kind of see why are these districts filling 15 versus the 90%, right, that aren't filling to their percentage.
Also very important to point out that this is specifically for West Point, and you do have some geographic considerations. So as we break this down, hopefully we'll be able to do the same thing for Navy and Air Force. But when you listen to that future episode, it's important to keep in mind that that is West Point specific.
Any idea, Trish, on why these congressional districts continue to ask for interview materials, continue to ask for in-person interviews, continue to ask for multiple essays and things like that, even though maybe, say, a member of the House only sends 3 or 4 nominations out of the 15? Why are they asking for all of this information, you think? And just, do you think it's just because this is what they've been doing in the past and they continue to need to do this today? Because we do see some districts that are starting to wise up here, and they just will look at your application, meaning like a House district will just look at your application, look to see that you meet the requirements, and then give you a nomination and won't even bother with an interview. But so why are all of these members of the House continuing to go through all of this application material?
From my perspective, it's the way that it's always been done. And change is difficult for a lot of, and so when you think about the terms of members of House of Reps, it's a 2-year term. So a lot of representatives are in there for a while, but 2 years is a pretty quick turnover. And the application process, if you look at different members of Congress, they all have the same page on their website. So that means they're copying and pasting the guidance to these members of Congress. And this is part of their duty, but it's not something that they're super familiar with unless they have a military liaison officer who can provide that guidance, who's been the carryover for them. So a lot of times they're just doing this because that's the standard web page, and that's how they build out their processes. And whether or not they actually should, I don't think the members of Congress and the staffers that are the Service Academy coordinators are really thinking through, oh, this is going to add a lot of extra work for students. That's not their concern. It's really not on them. What do you think?
I agree. And I mean, getting ready for interviews and things like that, and all of this, there's clearly a lot of misunderstanding by parents. I mean, we see this with parents and students we work with, is that thinking that this nomination is something that's highly prestigious, right, and really difficult to get. And in 90% of the congressional districts cases, it's almost a rubber stamp unless you just have a terrible application or you just don't fill out the application or something like that. All of this interviewing, all of this essay writing, getting the transcripts together, official transcripts, sending official SAT scores, getting a photo, and all of these things is just for what reason? Just to get rubber stamped that you're going to get a nomination? I'm just seeing this trending more and more towards a waste of time for candidates in a lot of ways, and really a waste of time even for congressional staffers that could be doing other things. So the bottom line is that the nomination process, especially under applied districts, is becoming increasingly symbolic, right? It's still a required step, but in many cases, it's really more procedural than competitive. Now, of course, this doesn't mean, Trish, that candidates should get lazy, but it does mean it's time to rethink how much effort you pour into every single nomination source, especially if your district is known as underfilling. So if you're a candidate and parent listening to this, know that strategic effort beats blind hustle, right? So looking at this thing strategically, focus your time on building a strong application, right, to your first choice academy, as you said, Trish. Work on the SATs, the thing that can truly move the needle here. Don't let outdated perceptions of nominations back in the 1950s or 1930s make you push hard on this nomination to make the perfect application and push you to burnout. And so that's really kind of my bottom line of this process. We're going to talk about this here again, because we're going to look at those 9 to 10% of those districts so that you out there can understand which districts are kind of fall into this category of where maybe you should be worrying about that nomination there. But I think even with increasing to 15, I think for the most part, getting at least one nomination, even in one of those super competitive districts, it's just become much easier than it was in the past.
I have two final thoughts. And the first one is that understanding, even if you're in a low competitive district, understanding that your member of Congress traditionally nominates using the principal with numbered alternates method. That is something where, okay, this nomination needs to be something that you pour a lot of effort into, because it has the potential to overcome some other deficiencies in your application and really push you to the top of the list. So that's very important for candidates to know. And perhaps we can add that to the list of 38 districts that are super competitive, as we can take a different perspective and look at the list of districts who historically nominate via a principal with numbered alternates, meaning ranked from 1 to 15 or 1 to 5. If there's only 5 candidates from the district that are applying, it's very critical to have that background, understanding, though, that with that turnover in the House, potentially every 2 years, a new member of Congress comes in and they could change that. They could change from principal with numbered alternates to competitive. So understanding the historical importance of who your representative is, what they've done in the past, if it's someone new, all of that, that's definitely something that you want to take into account when you're planning your nomination application.
Very cool. Well, good. Well, good, Trish. Well, Leo, thanks everyone for tuning in. I mean, if you found this helpful, we'd love you to share with other families in the Service Academy pipeline. And if you're a congressional staffer who's drowning in paperwork, well, maybe it's about time you take a fresh look at this system. So, Trish, we'll see you next time.